What did the Ayleid see in Meridia's light that made them burn their own? A shrine's glyphs pulse gold, shadows gnaw cracked stone, Dawnbreaker's glow fevered the air. Their towers rose on pyres, not pedestals. Meridia's purification devoured the living, not the dead, each beam. Not stone, Dawnbreakers, the glow breaths fevered the towers where air choked into Mundus temples but furnaces. Hymns were screams buried beneath Meridia's light, did not blasphemate foundations devoured. Devotion carved in ash, not stone. Devotion carved in ash, not stone. The towers were not temples but furnaces. Meridia's light did not blaspheme it devoured. Each spire channeled her judgment into a blade of fire, cleaving mortal essence to scourge Mundus of its corruption. The Ayleid called it harmony. They did not hear the screams woven into their hymns, nor see the offering, a tide of souls pressed into the earth, their voids sealed with gold and prayer. Exiled Idra, trafficker with shadows, Meridia's paradox thrived in this sacrament of annihilation. Her light was no salvation, it was a verdict, written in the blood of the unclean. The Ayleid called it holiness. They did not ask what their god had become when she traded celestial law for infernal keys. What remains when purification demands a graveyard? The towers still burn. The Idra kindled Mundus with their deaths. Meridia turned from the pyre. She bartered ethereal fire for Daedric shadows, weaving a sphere where light devoured what it touched. Exile was her crown. The Ayleid found her there, a fallen star in a void of ash. They did not ask why her radiance scorched the air. They built their towers to honor her, unaware their footings rested on a ritual's aftermath, a purging that left bones as fuel. Thousands vanished that night. The sphere consumed them not to destroy but refine. Meridia's light did not spare, it transmuted, folding mortal essence into Mundus sinews. The Ayleid called it divine favor. They called the towers altars, they did not see the graveyard beneath their hymns. Edric's sacrifice sealed heaven's gate, Meridia's bargain left a wound. Every flame in those spires was a soul's last breath, every prayer a shroud woven into the world's fabric. The Ayleid's holiness was a lie of omission. Their towers did not ascend the anchored, weights on a scale with no balance. What does light become when it feeds on the dead? The Ayleid's sin was not in the killing, it was in the belief that purity could be bought. The sphere still hums, a hymn of hunger. And beneath every tower, the earth remembers. The earth remembers not just the weight of stone, but the screams trapped in its veins. Dawnbreaker's light did not merely cleave undead, it seared the air with a golden hunger, leaving behind the scent of burnt sugar and charred bone. When the Ayleid forged their towers, they did not dig foundations. They unearthed prisons, pits where Meridia's radiance had already devoured 1,000 lives, their souls coagulated into a gelid film on the walls. The priests sang of purification, but the ground exhaled whispers in the dead of night, voices too fractured to be prayers. A master artisan once carved the threshold of Solstheim's central tower. He felt the difference in the stone as his chisel sank, not cold, but starved asterisk. The light wells they erected were not monuments, they were funnels. Each beam that pierced the sky drew from the reservoir of buried souls, their essence siphoned to keep Meridia's fire from guttering. The Ayleid did not sacrifice their own. They collected the forgotten, the conquered, the heretics from distant provinces, bodies stacked like kindling, their final breaths swallowed by the ground. The weapon that saved them from necrotic hordes became the noose around their necks. Dawnbreaker's glow, so holy in battle, cast long shadows in the ritual chambers. There the priests would chant as captives were bound to altars of black and gold. The light did not kill, it absorbed asterisk. Eyes would go wide, not in pain, but in sudden clarity realization that their suffering was not an end, but a transfer. One such victim, a girl with ash-streaked hair, locked eyes with a priest as her body dissolved. His faith cracked, he never again met her gaze. The towers rose, the Mundus shone brighter, but the Ayleid's light had a price. Every dawn required a dusk of souls. When the corruption came, when the shrines darkened and the Ayleid fell, it was not Meridia's wrath that finished them. It was the silence. The ground, long fed, refused to give more. The earth remembers, and so does the light. The Dawnbreaker gleams not for justice but hunger. Its blade, forged in twilight's breath, cuts not just flesh, it unweaves. The Ayleid saw only holiness in its radiance. They did not see the hollowed husks left in its wake. The towers they called sanctuaries were anchors, driving Meridia's light deep into the soil. Each spire a bone, each window a bleeding eye. What does a god demand to be remembered? The Ayleid answered with bodies. Thousands pressed into the earth, their whispers woven into the stone. Dawnbreaker drank their fear, their pain, their fading warmth, a purging, they called it. A rite to strengthen the Mundus, yet the light did not lift it devoured. The towers rose like prayers, but their foundations were silent screams. The Ayleid did not build for Meridia, they built for survival. The Mundus was sickening, its veins clogged with corruption. They believed the Dawnbreaker could cleave the rot away. They were right, it cleaved them away. The light does not forget, it never has. The towers stand frozen in their silent hymn. Inside, the Dawnbreaker's glow still pulses, a heartbeat of stolen lives. The Ayleid's devotion was not faith, it was fuel. And Meridia, distant and absolute, did not turn her face. She did not need to. The earth remembers, the light remembers. And the next who stand in its path will understand. Some purifications are not cleansings, they are endings. The Ayleid's final, blinding truth was not revelation. It was the sound of their own voices, swallowed by the divine machinery they fed. But to understand what they offer mortals, you must confront what they demanded. A silence so vast, it drowned the screams of 1,000 voices beneath each radiant spire. The Ayleid's towers did not reach for divinity, they were anchors, driving Meridia's light into a world it had already begun to devour. The Ayleid called her the Light Eater. They built their shrines on bones. No incense, no hymns, only the screams of those they claimed to purify. How many died in Solstheim's glacial dark before the towers rose? How many more were ground to ash beneath the steps of their altars? The Ayleid did not worship Meridia. They weaponized her hunger, carved her name into the throats of prisoners, and lit the sky with stolen breath. Each spire was a tomb, each flame a lie. They called it devotion, it was erasure. The night of tears was not unique. While Atmorans butchered snow elves, the Ayleid perfected the art of holy genocide. Their towers did not burn the dead, they devoured the living. Meridia's light, which birthed the Mundus, was twisted into a blade. A child's soul fed the fire. A mother's cry made the stone weep. What god forgives such mockery? What mortal survives being called an impurity? The Ayleid knew their truth would rot like the hands they buried under their shrines. So they called it divine, so they burned the evidence. The towers fell, the Ayleid fell. Meridia's name was stricken from their tongues, yet her light remains. It hums in the ruins, a dirge for the unburied. The Altmer now call her Daedric, a title to cage her rage. The Dunmer murmur Bothiah's name instead, as if that erases the blood, but the shrines still blade. The Light Eater is not forgotten, she waits. The towers gleamed like wounds in the sky. Each shard of Ayleid light pierced the earth, not to uplift but to excise. Meridia's flame did not purify, it devoured. The Aedra bled themselves to birth the Mundus. The Daedra turned away, leaving the mortal realm half-born. Meridia, cast out for her pact with the unmaking, became both midwife and executioner. Her light, meant to mend, seared the flesh of the living. The Ayleid called it sanctity, it was a pyre. They buried the first beneath the first spire. Thousands followed, willing or coerced, the light did not distinguish. Aedra or Daedra, Meridia's exile blurred that line. She who should have saved instead replicated the very rot she cursed. The towers stood as monuments to this truth. Salvation and slaughter are the same hands, clasped around the same throat. What kind of god demands such sacrifice? What kind of god enforces it with fire? The Ayleid never asked, they only built, they only burned. Their devotion was a mirror, reflecting Meridia's own corruption. The Light Eater did not need their faith, she needed their corpses. The towers still hum, not with prayer, with hunger. Meridia's light does not fade. It waits, as all exiles do, for something to consume. The towers still pulse, not with light, with the weight of 10,000 breaths stolen. The Ayleid carved shrines into the bones of the world, believing Meridia's fire would purify the Mundus. They did not see what the fire devoured, flesh, then spirit, then the silence where a soul should hum. Solstheim's blighted peaks bear the scars. The shrines, their twisted spires of ash and gray stone, were not built to worship, they were built to feed. Meridia's name was never spoken in those halls. Only the hunger it left behind. The fourth era bends under this truth. Cults in Skyrim whisper of a light that does not judge. In the tower of Cave Atch, the last dragonborn felt the ground weep beneath their feet, 1,000 voices murmuring forgiveness as the walls bled. The vestige. They saw stars flicker. Meridia's light, they learned, is no savior's glow. It is the afterimage of a world unmade. The Ayleid called it divine duty. A sacrifice to mend the cracks in creation, but the Mundus was never broken. The towers were the fracture, a wound sewn shut with stolen lives. Now every dawn the anchors shudder. The shrines in Solstheim hiss with thawing frost. Something stirs beneath the weight of all that gold. What does a god do when her priests become the sin? Meridia's light still lingers, not to save, to remember. The towers are not anchors, they are markers. Tombs for a civilization that mistook murder for mercy. The hunger has not lessened, it has only learned to wait. And in the dark, between stars, the question hums. When a god's fire burns brightest, does it illuminate or consume? The tower's cold gleam masks a heat that scorches memory. Whispers coil souls trapped in purifying flame, their pleas lost to ozone and ash. Beneath flags of light the ground pulses, a graveyard alive with ache. A priest's hand, outstretched in faith, trembles as light devours. Too late they know this holy fire feeds on flesh. What else did Meridia's light erase? Next, the towers fallen, the Ayleids packed with shadows that never faded. Dawnbreaker's light flickers, not against the dead, but the living. The Ayleid towers stand as monuments where Meridia's blade feasts on souls bound to stone. Their holy spires are bones of the dead, fused to a fire that does not liberatingly devours. How many walk those thresholds, thinking to ascend, only to become kindling for a god's hunger? The towers breathe. Shadows gnaw at the edges of their glow, patient as graves. Meridia's weapon burns brightest here, yet it casts no warmth, only a silence heavier than ash. What light endures when the thing it kills becomes the thing that fuels it? The last echo fades, Dawnbreaker's flame dims.